I'm here with Justin WILLS. Hey, Justin, how's everything?
Hey, everything's great.
Yeah, so we met like 7 months ago, 6 months ago.
6-7 months for a coffee, I think.
Yeah, that's how it all starts. Bodega, right? Santa Monica Bodega.
Yeah, that's the place.
Oh, yeah. And of course, I knew your work, like Society6. Like most of my house has your stuff, like literally.
All over it?
All over. Like you go in,
good.
like you have to do this. So for the people that have no idea who Justin is, he's one of the founders of Society6. And for those that have no idea about what Society6 is, like what are you doing with your life? Like, come on. It's like, do you want to talk a little bit about what Society6
Sure.
does?
Yeah, Society6 is a platform for artists from all over the world to sell their artwork on a variety of products. And there's no inventory, no risk for the artist, and they get to keep the rights to their work. And we have the pleasure of working with hundreds of thousands of artists from every country or city you can imagine, and having customers from all over the world too. So it was an international effort, and all the work was printed on demand on a variety of high quality products, for whether it's apparel, home goods, tech accessories, you name it. The offerings continue to expand even past my time with the company.
Huh. And it was your first startup, second, third, fifth?
Probably, I would say probably second. And there were many experiments, and I guess you could say many experiments and attempts before that, and probably even many more ideas. But this was really the first thing that we had success with, and it was an amazing experience with a couple of old friends and great team members. So.
Yeah, and you guys, you sold the company, right? The company was acquired. Yeah.
We did sell the company actually several years ago now, and it was a fast ride from start to finish, probably about 4.5 years from inception to the time that we got acquired, and about a year just getting everything set up and making sure the handoff was comfortable and correct.
Yeah, was the amount disclosed, the amount of the acquisition?
I believe so.
Oh, nice.
I believe so.
Nice. So, should we disclose it or let people Google whatever you want?
They can Google it if they want.
Google
that's fine.
Google it. So, did you guys raise any VC money? I think you only raised angel, friends and family, right?
Well, it was late 2008, early 2009. Things were not great in this country, as many people could remember. So raising money was the last thing that we were able to do. We did have some friends and family money, and just a little bit really, and we hunkered down. I actually moved to Portland, Oregon, with my family, partly to save money, because I thought things would be 10% cheaper to be up there. Our daughter was going into high school, and it seemed like there's no sales tax, and life's just generally a little bit easier. So that was sort of one of the things that I did. And we just bootstrapped it for a little while. And then we did get a strategic investment from a company called Threadless. And then, once we were successful, we had a lot of offers from VCs for money, but we didn't take it. We didn't think we needed it at that time.
Of course, yeah. And this is like the important thing about the show, like showcasing entrepreneurs that they didn't go the VC route. They made a lot of money. They were happy, which is the most important thing, and made like the world a little bit better. Like because you guys, at least you made my house a little bit better, a little bit more beautiful. So yeah. Yeah,
no, that was really important to us. I mean, I mentioned being able to provide opportunities for artists from all over the world. That was really important to me personally. I would say that was the number one thing that just made me whole as a person. And then also making sure that artists could keep the rights to their work. A lot of experiences that artists were having and still are having is that they tend to A, not really get paid, B, if they are getting paid, they're getting paid very little money, and they tend to give up their rights on things pretty much. And it can be challenging for them. So we want to make sure that artists had the flexibility, if they've created some IP, that they can maintain that and they can do what they want with that, try it out on different platforms or places. And, we felt like we were doing it through creativity, which is a great way for people to connect, whether they're artists or customers. And even though it was behind a computer screen, which I'm currently trying to fix in my life. Having someone who created something in the Philippines and posted that artwork, and then there's a customer in Saudi Arabia who purchases an iPhone case. I mean, it's kind of a cool thing that's moving around.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
People getting excited about stuff like that. So yeah, it feels nice to kind of check all those boxes, and that's difficult with a for-profit business for it to have, for it to have a mission and for it to have real something that's really passionate about and wants to make the world a better place. And I think more and more companies obviously are doing that, and I'm really excited to see that as a pattern.
And so you told me like the company started, you got some money, you start working from a...
Yeah, and like that, it's just,
That's super easy. You just went...
Just mix.
Yes, I want money. A lot of customers came, you chill back, you made money. Yeah. So what was the most difficult thing during this stage of your life?
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I would say the most difficult thing is balance as an individual. I was a lot younger then and probably a lot less wiser, and I think I threw everything I had at it round the clock, and I probably wasn't super great to myself. I mean, I did, I exercised a little bit and got that in, but it was a full commitment. We did it. It was just 3 of us, and because we were outsourcing all the production, and because the network of artists was outsourced as well, or in that it was a community, we didn't have any employees really. So it was 3 people, on the job 24 hours a day for several years. And, it in retrospect, it seems like it was quick, but at the time it felt like it was taking forever. And I always sort of felt like I was on a space station or something. Like I would just sort of work all day, and then I would go for a run outside, and then I would come back to my desk and just kind of be doing that. So I would say that was the hardest thing, was just that it probably wasn't as balanced as I could have been, with my life. And then, for the business, I think the biggest challenge when you have a business that has sort of where you have to, a little bit of a catch-22, where you have to have the artists arrive. You have to have, high quality artists and have something for them, but you have to have customers as well. And so, balancing that out, where if you don't have enough customers for the artists, they're not going to be excited. They're not going to come back. If you don't have the artists, it's hard to get. So you have those sort of chicken and egg problems, and getting critical mass I would imagine it's even harder now. Getting any kind of network critical mass is pretty challenging. We had some tactics for doing that, but that was tricky to do. And it always felt like we, needed to keep that going and need to ramp that up. So it was very tricky in the beginning. Once that started going and we had a network, it obviously things got a lot easier, or there were sort of different issues to deal with. So
it was 3 founders, no VC funding, huge exit. Who came up with the idea, and how you guys came up with the idea?
Well, the idea, I would say the idea changed quite a bit. It was very iterative because there were 3 of us and we were all kind of designers in a sense. We really kind of started with an intent as opposed to a business idea. My wife's a photographer, and she was working on a project at the time that involved, she was working on a book project that involved artists. And, it was sort of before Kickstarter and all of those crowdfunding platforms, there weren't really a lot of opportunities for artists on the internet. There wasn't any way for them to showcase their work. So a lot of it just started with an intent that artists were being underserved online, that we wanted to support them and give them a place to showcase their work. I think we initially started, there was at one point where I literally designed wireframes for the same thing as Kickstarter. We were going to go down that route, but we were a little bit intimidated by the fraud risks and a lot of that stuff. There really hadn't been a good use case of whether or not people would just sort of take the money and run, and how we would have accountability. I think Amazon payments and PayPal mass payments, all those kind of things were pretty new. So it felt a little bit risky, and we didn't do that. And ironically, I think we released our initial launch around the same time as Kickstarter. And I remember we sort of looked at each other like, oh, glad we didn't do that. Somebody else is doing that. So the idea was really centered around artists. We kind of, we batted back and forth whether we should be a nonprofit, whether it should be a for-profit thing. We were trying to provide opportunities for artists, whether it's through magazines or brand opportunities where they would have a way to make a little bit of money through a program. So we kind of experimented with a lot of different things, and then the number one thing that we started to see was, well, we have to keep the lights on. We don't have funding on this. We're all just kind of doing this, bootstrapping. This is just, we were committed to it, but we didn't, we had to kind of keep the lights on and keep the server running. And the number one thing that artists, because we had a network and artists could post quite a lot, they were always just talking about opportunities for them to have their artwork on different products. That's what they were most excited about. And we had all these digital assets on the server, and we thought, and then we didn't have money to sort of go out and do mass production. We thought, well, we can print these things we can do art prints on demand and kind of just let that work itself out without any risk. And so at the time, a lot of the on-demand product quality was just getting better and better. It was a little bit limited still, but things were evolving. So it really kind of happened organically over time, as we were just always forcing ourselves to kind of design a solution for ourselves and for the community.
And after the company was acquired, what did you do? What was the first thing actually that you bought? The first thing that you bought after the acquisition?
The first thing I bought after the acquisition?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I remember the biggest thing I bought right after the acquisition was a digital camera back for my wife, for her camera, because she had taken all the photographs for our Society6 without being paid. And there was this really expensive digital back. She likes to shoot film. And so my partners and I agreed that she deserved that. So I went and did that.
It could have been company expenses, though.
Yeah, in retrospect, I think I got hosed on that deal, but it still felt good to help her out.
Are you still talking with your other co-founders? Are you guys still meeting or talking about new ideas or something like that?
Yeah, I think we don't do the talking about new ideas stuff as much anymore. I would say for the first little while, we took a little bit of a break from each other, although we're all good friends. And
you were in the same space for so many years.
Well, actually, we were never in the same room. That was sort of the irony. We were all split up. We were all split up. I was in Portland, and then the other two partners were in Los Angeles, and everyone was behind their computer all the time. And we just did everything through Google Hangs and Google Docs and virtual stuff. And when we would get together, we would hang out, have some beers, and then we couldn't get any work done because we weren't in front of our screens. So I think that probably helped us get along a little bit, that we had some separation. But we're all good friends. We talk a lot. We spent quite a bit of time having banging ideas around with each other, and I think we had some pretty good ones. We have a nice little list somewhere of things we come up with. But I think in the end, we all kind of had our different interests or things that we wanted to pursue separately. So we haven't gotten back to do that, but we've kicked some things around for sure.
And how did you meet them? How do you meet your founders, your co-founders?
Through work. We all. So I think this was probably. I have to do some age math real quick. I think it was like maybe 18 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Now we met. We all worked at a youth marketing agency in Los Angeles called ADD Marketing. We did a lot of marketing for video game companies, entertainment, and Procter & Gamble, some automotive companies. I was the creative director. My other partner, Justin, was, I think, the head of sales. And then Lucas was the developer at the firm. But all of us were sort of designers as well. And so we met there. We worked together there a little bit, and then I was kind of freelance doing my own projects with Lucas. Justin and I almost started something together, but then he went and started something else, and then I went and worked with Justin for a little while, and so there was a lot of kind of dancing around. But Justin and Lucas hadn't had a ton of interaction as much before, so Lucas and I had worked a little bit more, and then the three of us kind of came together. But there was a long history of sort of trust and,
of course,
trust, probably a little bit of arguing, probably a little working together, but just knowing that, there's a lot of respect. And I think something that's important for teams, at least it was for us, was I always felt like I was just, what am I doing with these guys? These guys are so much better at all these things than I am. And so I was always pushing myself to be up to their level. And I can't speak for them and say that they felt that way, but they sort of hinted that there's a mutual feeling of needing to sort of rise to each other's level. not necessarily competitively, but just I think you just want to be better. And I think being around people who make you want to be better, and also I think being able to argue and fight and beat the crap out of each other verbally, but then have great ideas and hug it out. And I think that enables you to get through problems really quickly, find solutions really quickly. And we had made a big commitment in the design of the company and the effort that we were going to just do this as 3 people. I think it was like 2008, we'd all read the 37 Signals books and gotten really excited about and actually prior to that, Justin, myself, and wherever we'd worked, we'd always had clients and not customers, which is a sort of different dynamic. You have some big fish that pay all the bills, and there's a lot of, making sure they're happy and all the things that go with that. And I think that's certainly, a wonderful business in its own. But, we were really excited about the idea of having customers. So how do you make something really effective for a lot of people? And, can 3 people, can you keep a small group of where everyone's doing the work and it's not about some of the other business concerns or staffing concerns, or can we sort of pull all that stuff out of the equation? So there was like a design to the whole effort, I think from the get-go. And that was sort of part of why we sold the company, is it sort of that model of 3 people doing all of this remotely started to break down a little bit, or at least it didn't feel like that could be effective anymore at scale. We did get to a point where it's like, well, either we need to,
raise
have
money
offices,
or get
raise,
more people.
we need to do something or kind of move on from this. But I think there's something to being hands-on and to kind of keeping a lean team and trying to avoid. I think what I loved about what we did is the things that we didn't do, that are just maybe traditional business concepts that we just sort of were like, well, we're not gonna spend any time on that. We're just gonna make something great that works well for people, and we're gonna design it and we're gonna use it ourselves.
And man, that's literally what I've been seeing all the time. Like startups that are fun to work for and with, and they actually provide value. It's companies that they try to find first the customers. Some customers are paying. You're doing it with people that you trust a lot. And then you go for money, angel investment, or VC. And obviously, like there are some type of companies that you need VC funding to scale. But whenever I talk with entrepreneurs, they say like, you know what, I have an idea, I'll go and fundraise 10 million and I will hire 100 people. It sucks. When you have 100 people, it is terrible. Instead of building cool things and providing value, you have to do, the psychologist for everybody. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you're managing people, and I think people are wonderful, but they're complicated. I had, prior to that, Justin and I had been in a place that raised $45 million. There were some identity issues there, some differences of opinion about what the company's focus was. I think there was a distance between people and the software that we were building in terms of using it. And there were long lead times in developing and launching all the versions of the software. And it was stressful. And that, sales was always way ahead of the product group. And there's, and then it sort of devolves to tribalism and other things. So this was a reaction to that type of mentality. And like you said, there are just certain cases where you do need to raise money, and you do need more than 2 or 3 people to do something. And I respect that, but in our case, that's what it meant to me, and that's what it meant to us.
Yeah. I think it's a different kind of startup. There are some entrepreneurs that they want this. They want to have a small team of like people that they know what they're doing. They're very hardcore nucleus, and then they build on top of that. Like I think the Instagram guys, it wasn't like 50 people. I think there were 10, maybe less. And they had a pretty huge exit.
Yeah, no, I've heard of those guys. I think things work out pretty well.
An app on mobile, something like that.
I mean, and again, I think when you say entrepreneur, I know being an entrepreneur is really is like a cool thing. Particularly if you go up to San Francisco, there's a market for selling to the life of an entrepreneur to entrepreneurs, and it's this amazing French word. If you look it up, it does sounds a little different than what you think. And I never thought of myself as that. I've always just thought of myself as maybe a designer or a creative person. I like to make stuff, and I like to help other people and provide opportunities for them. So I don't know if I really fit the mold of somebody that wants to. I mean, I've certainly made my share of decks in my life, pitch decks, sales decks, whatever. But I think that process is like a different process from actually making something of use for people. And I think there are, you know, folks with a lot of business acumen and a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom who are able to do all of it, who are able to have a big company, who are able to focus on a product and or service and doing it really well and designing that. I don't know if that's where I was at the time.
Was there a specific time during your startup where you said, guys, this is not working, we are not making money, or something, where you were that close to like, okay, it's over?
Well, there was a time when it was almost over, and I was not gonna give up. I think I was sort of like pissed at the world or something at the time. I don't know. It's kind of like a little bit of a punk rock group that we had, but I think I just knew that I'd sort of like bought into this. I was gonna move to Portland. You know, my partner and I had kind of developed this idea. We'd brought our other partner in, and I just felt like, you know, there's no easy way out of this thing, but it's like you're crawling in a tiny cave and there's only one way out. You have to keep crawling forward. And I remember telling people that, you know, somebody was going to have to pry this thing from my dead hands and I do remember a time when my partners, we weren't making any money. Things were really slow, and, you know, it hadn't been that long, but it felt like forever. And, you know, we were all running off our savings. And I just said, all right, you guys, if you guys are done, I'll just be here doing this anyway. I'm going to figure this out. And, you know, I can't say that I can't take all the credit for that, but my partner did say, you know, that there was a moment where I just was not going to quit this thing. And I think that, you know, it's not over until you stop.
Oh, yeah.
Is something I always talk to people about, my friends or my brother who was starting something. And, you know, if you wake up one day and you're done, then it's over. But if you just keep chipping away at it, and there's always this, you know, there's always sort of a life cycle to these things too. Like I think if you've gone through that process and you've had times when you're like, this isn't going to work, and how are we going to get out of this? And then you have little victories, and you have this kind of wave that goes up and down. And there's this feeling that, like, even when you think you can't solve a problem, if you just hang in there a little bit, there can be solutions, whether it's a partnership or sometimes if it's just a matter of time. I mean, that's a strange thing that can be hard to wrap your heads around if you haven't raised money, or if things are going poorly, or you're not seeing the movement you want. Sometimes time is a factor as well, and opportunities can open up or things can change. So I just think you have to kind of hang in there. That said, you know, sometimes an idea is a bad idea and you need to stop. I guess it's hard to know.
Yeah. That's the thing with startups. There's nobody knows exactly if it's working or not. It's very difficult to judge.
Well, I think if you're committed to the intent of what you're trying to do, I think if you're sort of committed to this, you know, to a business idea, and you've raised some money and you've kind of set up the business and you're going that route, I think it might be a little bit easier to say, you know what, this doesn't work. Maybe we pivot. But I think if your intent is to really impact a certain group of people's lives or to do something for somebody, I think you can find a way. And I think it's maybe depends on, you know, your level of commitment to that subject or to thinking about the people that you're doing something for. I think that makes it easier. At least it made it easier for me to say, you know, this is something I believe in, and we're going to stay with it, you know.
And what are you doing now? So the company was acquired,
Yeah.
you had fun, you bought a camera for your
bought
wife.
a camera back.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel it's been a few years. I spent the years after that, kind of just trying to rebuild, you know, a little bit of time to recover and rebuild myself. We had I had a son literally a month before we sold the company. So a lot of personal stuff had happened too. Our daughter graduated high school and kind of moved on. So I took a little time to recover, but I pretty quickly wanted to revisit some creative projects that I looked at. I've been working on some writing for a good while. And then a few months back, I guess actually a few years ago, I came into contact with the folks over at Beautify Earth, Evan and Ruben, and was excited about what they were doing, bringing art, you know, out into the streets and doing it with a focus on community. And they really inspired me, and I was spending some time talking to Evan then, and then a few months back, you know, I sort of was re-engaged with them a bit and got excited about what they were doing again. And I'd been kind of thinking about what I've been doing with my writing. And, when I was working on Society6, in the beginning, I wanted to go out and be able to talk to artists about what they were doing, probably make them sit down at a table with me and a microphone.
You'd always do a podcast with artists, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to do that. In the beginning, it was like, we didn't have the money to be doing that type of activity. And then by the time things were going, it was sort of too busy to run out and do that sort of thing. But it was always on my mind that I wanted to kind of know these people beyond, my computer screen. But I loved that I was connected to something, but I wanted to kind of see the human beings behind that and understand them a little bit. So it always kind of been important to me. And then a few months ago, I started putting together an idea for a documentary series about mural artists, about artists who work in public space and who focus on making the world a more beautiful place, working with communities, challenging status quo, and doing projects of scale and scope that is impactful all around the world. So I have been kind of putting that concept together, building a team of trusted people to help me with that and moving that forward. So that's been getting some momentum lately, and we're excited about where that's headed.
Is it going to be on Netflix when it's done?
I don't know if it'll be on Netflix, but something like that. Hopefully one of the streaming networks.
Oh, nice. So you started writing after the acquisition happened. You started writing, and you're still writing. Like you're writing a screenplay. So the script. No,
this is more. Yeah, this is probably. There was some screenwriting where it was actual in that format, fictional stories, and just kind of working on something that I'd wanted to. I hadn't really ever given myself the time to do that, but I could see pretty clearly that just being behind the computer writing by myself all day was not what I wanted to do. I still wanted to make stuff. So this has been a nice mixture of meeting people, talking to people, gathering a team, collaborating. And, the nice thing about it too is it's not just writing, it's designing, which I really missed. I had kind of, I'd spent a lot of time designing with Society6. And I hadn't done that in a few years. So getting back into that has been really exciting. Working with color again, it's pretty fun.
Do you paint or draw?
I don't.
It's crazy. It's strange. Yeah.
I've had this debate with my partner, the other Justin Cooper. He paints a lot, and I enjoy his artwork. And we sort of had this debate whether it's sort of designer versus artist. I need. I don't know. I have an Australian Shepherd dog. He needs a job. You know what I mean? And so I kind of need to know what I'm trying to do with when I'm being creative. Like it needs to have a project or a focus or a purpose. And my wife, Tatiana, she's an artist, and she's a true artist. I mean, it's really about what she feels and what she connects with, and it doesn't necessarily have to come in a shape or a form or have an end result. And I've learned a lot from that. And so it's harder for me to just sort of play.
Yeah. Same here. I'm terrible. I cannot draw. I try to take like lessons. It's terrible. Like uninspiring. Like I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah, no, I almost didn't graduate college because I took an art class and they didn't want to give me credit for my pathetic drawing. And I was just trying something that was hard for me.
You should send them a T-shirt. Like I met Justin and all I got to this lousy T-shirt.
Yeah. And that's why it's been, but I also obviously have an admiration for artists and people who can just create in that way. And that's why it's enjoyable for me to, basically this is another platform, the way I look at it. So it's fun for me to create platforms for creative people to do what they're going to do. And I guess that's my art.
Yeah. And why Los Angeles? Why you didn't stay in Portland?
Well, there was a lot of debate about that.
I'm sure.
Portland's a wonderful place. It's, easy living up there. The food's great. The people are wonderful. So we actually did a little bit of back and forth, and my wife wanted to stay there. And I guess part of it was I had a bunch of friends here, old friends that I'd gone to school with, people I had moved here with, and I love surfing and I like sunshine. And it was kind of that simple. I wish it was something more. I tried surfing in Portland and it's just awful. It's like a 2-hour drive. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. This is going to be fun. I'm going to put on this wetsuit. I'm going to go out there. I put on it's like a scuba suit.
Oh, okay.
And you go out there and it's like 45 degrees. There's nobody in the water, and you know there's sharks in the water. So, so it's that kind of thing. I guess it was more of a lifestyle thing. But you know, sometimes we pine for that place. But the rain is tough. If you got to be ready for that weather. Yeah. And I like the way the sun
Same
feels.
here. I cannot stand rain at all.
Yeah.
And so you moved to Los Angeles. You started. Did you know how to surf before you started learning in Los Angeles?
No, I didn't. I learned how to surf I guess I'm still learning how to surf. I tried, you know, it was like 20 years ago. Pathetically, a few friends and I, we didn't really. There was nobody telling us what to do.
The same. Terrible.
I think we went to Manhattan Beach on longboards, and we're surfing like straight down. I'm glad we didn't die. But then after when I had some free time after Society6, I did do some things like 30 days straight of surfing every day.
Okay.
I got my friends really excited about surfing. I kind of poured a lot of my fanaticism into getting better at that. So I finally got to do it, you know, a few days a week and spend time on that. So that's a fun way to. I don't golf, so it's a great way to spend time with your friends, your buddies, and catch up and do something like that.
So you surf not every day, every couple
I was
of
getting
days.
like 3 to 4 days a week.
Oh, okay.
Probably.
Here in Santa Monica.
Probably Venice, right?
Venice Pier.
I think that's the Washington Pier right there behind us. I like it out there, south of the pier. It's a little bit of space.
Yeah, try also to surf. I'm terrible. I don't know. Very bad. I haven't done the 30 days though. I went to Mexico specifically for a whole week to learn how to surf, but I ended up working. I know it's pathetic. Right. So yeah.
You have to bond with your equipment.
I know, and I have the huge the longboard from Costco. You know, that is
the soft top.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that beginners have those because they can hit you with their board, and it's nice that it's soft.
Yeah, I think they call it the Cadillac of surfboard because it's huge.
It's hard to turn and it's hard to learn on them, but you know, I guess it's like building a business. Like you just have to be willing to come out the next day and try it again.
Yeah.
So I think if it's a little bit easier, maybe that helps you do that, build that habit. But I'm glad. So we've been here for, really committed to being here probably now for about 4.5 years. Son's in first grade. We're
settled here.
We're settled here. We had a house up in Portland that we're sort of in the process of finally giving to someone else.
And what about the community? I won't say about the startup community in Los Angeles, but what about the artist community? I know that it's huge, like with the Burning Man guys, like it's pretty big, right? Maybe bigger than Portland.
Oh, you mean the artist community in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the nice thing about Portland, because it feels like a small town, is that the community...
it's bonded.
It's bonded. Yeah. It's a little, I think, without a little bit of pretense, it's a little more sincere, I would guess. I mean, not to say that there aren't amazing artists here that are very sincere, but, it's Los Angeles, and I think that when you bring that element to it, maybe it kind of adds... I'm actually going to an event tonight downtown. I'm hearing Shepard Fairey speak with a curator, Pedro Alonso.
Huh.
He's going to... Pedro is someone that I spoke to about our project as well, and he said he's going to interrogate Shepard Fairey, I think is what he said. I think he's joking.
Good, okay, yeah.
But the two have worked together, so I'm going to go see that. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a community. I think it's probably bigger. I think there's more resources and maybe some bigger opportunities here. I think so with that maybe comes, it doesn't feel quite as familial as the one in Portland felt, but I think it's still some amazing people here doing amazing things.
What about startups, VCs, angels? Are you involved at all here in Los Angeles?
I've dipped into that a little bit. It's a whole nother thing, thinking about it. I think you and I have actually talked about it a little bit. I haven't done it enough to, or for long enough to know whether I'm any good at it. And I think the hardest part is sort of, getting pattern recognition around it and learning.
It's like surfing. It's exactly like surfing. Yeah, exactly like surfing.
Yeah, and I just, I mean, I don't know. There's probably some really smart people out there who are just smart and good at doing things right away or who get them. But I just, I need to make a lot of mistakes before I know what I'm doing at anything. And so it seems like it's a little challenging to learn from that because, it takes 4 or 5 years or so, maybe, to even find out if something was a success or a failure or a good decision. And so far it hasn't been a focus of mine to do at volume enough to see. I mean, I've dipped into it and done a few things with. I guess for me, it's another way to help create opportunities for people. So I have done some angel investing with people, whom I have a relationship or who I believe in their intent or what they're doing. And you approach that the way knowing that it's a long shot and that there's a lot of odds stacked against these people and you might not ever see that money again. It's not, so it's, there's that part of it. But I also, there's a guy, I know a friend of mine I think he's just one of those guys who's really good at it. He picks things really well. He negotiates his deals with folks really well. And I think he's had a lot of success with it. But then there's Seed Invest and other platforms like that. I've even experimented with, I forget the name of it. There was a platform for crowd investing in art. Oh. You could sort of buy shares in a Picasso or a Warhol or something. So there's a lot of these kind of smaller micro opportunities out there that I think are interesting, but I'm not sure where I've settled on it yet. And I think unless you're, I think if you have value and that it can be part of connecting yourself to a community, so some of the people that I have invested with are, people that I enjoy talking to or giving advice to, and I'm rooting for them. And I think that's important. That's kind of where it's.
Angel investing is it's stressful, strange, because it's not a really quantitative process. It's more about a gut feeling, like knowing the entrepreneur, feeling comfortable, trusting him, because there are not numbers yet. They're just projections. So it's very difficult to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that they're all raising money, and that they need money, and their reasons tend to be different. And each one kind of has a set of concerns and problems, right? And those sort of change. And you can go ask anyone, and they'll kind of tell you what they think. Oh, it's all about the team. Or there was somebody that I met that works with a angel investing group. He runs it, and I'd kind of looked at maybe joining one of those. And his whole thing was like, you just look for the guy that you think can raise money again. Will this person standing up in front of the room be able to raise more money when they need it? And what do those terms look like? And, are they asking for, suitable terms now? And I sat in a few of those kind of larger group meetings where they review pitches. And, I think anyone who's kind of done it for a while is basically just turning down, 99 out of 100 or 999 out of 1,000. They just get accustomed to just saying, this is broken, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And I don't know in that mindset, like how you develop an attitude where you know when something's good. Like I wouldn't have, if you came along and pitched me my business now, or like if I looked at my first deck right now and somebody asked me for, an angel investment, I'd be like, I guess, what are you guys doing?
I feel exactly the same. It's very strange and also frustrating for the entrepreneurs, because they try to raise money and, they give their best self, they give their soul out there. Yeah. And there's somebody saying like, I don't like it because the color, the name, the whatever. Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about the environment where a lot of people are raising money and where there's a lot of money going out. I think that has an impact on people's behavior. Economics does drive a lot of our behavior. And I think when there's a lot of sort of money around, it can start to feel a little bit bubbly, and everyone's kind of going after the money and they're focusing on the presentation as opposed to the product, because there's opportunity to get that money and that can be helpful for them. So, I don't know what that does I don't know if that suppresses, I don't know if that allows the room for people who are just going to say, screw it, I'm going to just do this thing with no money on my own. It's probably a little more tempting to say, well, I gotta just, kind of button up and go out and put this together and raise money. I'd be crazy not to, as opposed to people who are going to maybe be more independent. I don't know if you don't see them. I think the best deals and the best opportunities probably don't come around because those people are head down, maybe figuring it out. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Huh. If you could select any startup in the world, to be your original idea, what that startup would be?
To be my original idea?
Yeah.
Whoa. I don't know if I've thought about that before.
Something like a product you saw and you're like, this is awesome. I should have thought about that because it's really nice.
Society6? No. Wow. I honestly don't know. I mean,
I can tell you mine.
yeah,
which
go ahead,
is,
tell me yours.
yeah. So mine is extremely stupid, but I don't know. I'm fascinated by this idea. So have you seen the mirrors, the car mirrors, like that you see in the back?
rear view mirrors?
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you seen they have a small switch there that you do this and all of a sudden
Yeah.
there's no lights blinding you? Who thought about that?
Oh, I see. Sort of the other glass. Well,
Yeah.
so a product, yeah. I mean, I've had a few of these. I guess I've had a few things like that where I've had a few things where I sort of thought of a product, didn't do anything about it, and then you see it. I don't know if that happens to you all the time. I think that's something that happens more often. And it can be kind of anything from the mundane to but I mean, a product that I had, this is like a silly product, but this was something that I, early in my surf career, I always sort of was like, get out, have to be changing my clothes on this side of the road. And at the time we were just wrapping towels around our bodies. And I was like, gosh, I want to like cut a hole in the top of my towel and wear it so I can change. And now, I mean, if you're a surfer, like everyone buys these like hoods. They're like robes with the hoods.
Yeah.
And they're like $60 on Amazon. And it's just basically a towel with a hole cut in the top.
It's a very good lucrative idea. Yeah.
Things that I mean, other businesses now that I admire and that I love, obviously the scooter idea is great.
Yeah.
I love that. I remember at the time when we were doing Society6 and it felt really complicated to have production partners and artists and all these other pieces. We had a lot of sort of Instagram envy because that kind of popped right at that time. And we were early users of Instagram, I think, at the time. So that seemed like a great way to share. Obviously, we were excited about people sharing work. So, there was a few artist communities and creative communities that came around that I was always a little bit envious of. I think Behance was one that I thought was great. That got acquired by Adobe. So that was something that I had been sort of messing around with a version of earlier and we weren't able to get that out there before Behance got a lot of momentum with artists and creative people. So I would say things like that. But yeah, I have sort of notebooks of these random products that I never got around to making that always sort of, those things that sort of haunt you.
Yeah.
When you see them out there and you're just like,
I could have done that. Yeah, I could have made so much money.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think, you just know when you have an idea now that somebody else has that same idea.
And it takes a lot of personal time to actually do it. So it's not like I'm going to dedicate 5 years of my life to do this because.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing I've resigned myself to, or at least that I understand about myself now, is I just really. I mean, those things are all wonderful and great, but I think I like people, and I like creative people, and I want to just find ways to be around them and to be helping them and providing opportunities for them. So I don't know if, the things that I do will be as elegant as like a Nest thermostat or something amazing product design, although I love product design. I love design of any kind, and that's just wonderful. But I think for me, it's just, what are those opportunities to interact with people and like you said, opportunities to add value to the world and to my life at the same time. Like, how can I do that?
Have you met any startup outside of the US that are doing something great and you're like, hey, why we're not doing this in the US? Something.
No, I can't say that I've had that experience. Have you? I would imagine you have had that experience.
Yeah, I've met like a lot of companies and I'm like, why this?
Are there companies in Greece that are doing stuff that you find?
Usually in Greece, it's mostly about tourism. They do a lot of things that they have to do about tourism. For example, there was a startup that created a box where you lock it on the umbrella on the beach. So you put all your stuff there, and you can go swimming, and it unlocks with a keypad.
Oh.
So you can put your car keys, whatever, so nobody steals.
It was a box or a bag?
A box.
Because there's a bag on... there's a bag on Instagram now that's made of, I guess, knife-resistant material, and you lock it the same way. Maybe these guys, it's a box, it's a bag.
Maybe. Or somebody saw the idea, and I'm like, I'm doing this.
Yeah, I can wrap. I think it's Kevlar, basically.
Ah.
It's like a Kevlar bag. So you can't cut it open.
I assume you've traveled everywhere, like in the world. Like you've been to Europe, you've been to Asia.
I haven't traveled that well. I've been to Europe a little bit. I was in Europe for a month this last summer with my family and another family. But I need to travel more. I have been.
So that's what I was going to ask.
And that's kind of why I wanted to do this documentary series, so that I have an excuse to travel all over the world. Hopefully they don't, they'll let me come.
So during the startup, you were not getting any vacations, right?
Oh, no.
So that's what I was going to say,
oh, no, no.
Because people believe you do a startup and it's going out, talking with customers, so fun. You go your vacations. Every day is a vacation because you can work from wherever you want.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that at all. And I did try a few vacations. I mean, my wife was very understanding. I think if she hadn't had an adult, like an older child to be with her, she would have felt very lonely. It was hard to go on vacation because we had a production situation too. It wasn't. I mean, all businesses, particularly those that are online, have 24/7 demands, but something was always broken. You wake up and there was some disaster had occurred, and
the story of my life.
So there was like no opportunity to be like, I'm just I'm gonna take 5 days off of this and just let it float, see what happens. And I would try that. It's sort of schedule stuff. I tried it, and you go there and you'd be on the phone, or you'd be working the whole time. And I was like, why did I just spend all that money to basically be working from another location? Like, I was just gonna go home. So I didn't do that as much as I should, and then, like I said, we had a newborn son right afterwards, so vacation felt like it wasn't. And I've been parenting for a long time. My daughter's 24 now. I met my wife, I was 24, and her daughter was 4, so I adopted Lily. And so I've been parenting now for like 21 years.
Ooh, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Was it difficult, more difficult than the startup?
I think they have similar qualities to them, young people and young businesses, and that you always have this sense that like it's not, is it gotten to a point where it can like walk on its own? I think those are sort of all those little things you get. You start off with this little idea, and it's like a seed of an idea. It could easily be squashed. It could be run over by a car. Like all kinds of bad things could happen to this if you were not constantly checking it and grooming it. And I don't know what it's like for you, but I don't know what your sort of anxiety level is or sort of need to constantly be vigilant about things, but
super high.
Yeah. I mean, businesses and children both kind of bring out that hypervigilance. So, but they can both be rewarding. You can't really sell your kid after 5 years and be done quite as easily.
You hope that
longer
the
commitment.
kid IPO'd, so now
right.
It's,
That's right. There can be dividends associated with that.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Yeah. So you told me that Society6 was the second startup.
Well, I wouldn't say that there was a startup before that. There were ideas and attempts.
But tell me about the attempts. I love,
Well, I had the earlier attempt was basically a network of professional creatives, not artists, but designers. It was a Behance-like platform, and that was probably in 2004. So we had the designs ready to go. We were, I had some developers I was working with in South America who were helping me. My other partner, Lucas, and I were sort of going back and forth on it. And that just didn't pan out. We got sort of pretty close with it. And I was doing some projects for people because I'd been a creative director for a while at that, in that marketing agency. So I was doing a variety of projects for some big companies, but using international resources. And at that time, working with people who were not in the same room was a little bit of a bigger deal. People weren't accustomed to that. That wasn't the norm. But I saw an opportunity. There was a ton of talent all over the world that were people who were excited to be working on projects. You need to just be able to kind of bring them in. So I think that was the first sort of startup and I think the mistake I made is I wasn't willing to go broke for it. And that kind of always stuck with me later. It was like, I need to go way past the red line and way beyond my comfort zone on this, because when I tried to be comfortable before, it just didn't work out. So.
I'm 100% sure you're familiar with the term emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I've been on a few of those.
Oh, yeah. It's the favorite thing of every entrepreneur. Like, wakes up, he's the king of the world. After a couple of hours, everything is terrible and everything. Do you have any suggestions how somebody could ride it a little bit smoother? Because you cannot eliminate it. If you're in a
Yeah.
startup, you just have to suck it up. Like doesn't work like that. Like you have to find ways to somehow smooth the ride. Do you have any suggestions, any tricks that you were doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if I was doing them then. I think it's more something I learned from that experience, and as progressed, I think it was just knowing that when you were having those problems or when it seemed like the end of the world, I think through some, maybe it's just pattern recognition of seeing that was really an opportunity for either you to step up personally and do something, or for there to be a moment for some innovation or some kind of new partnership or new opportunity. That knowing when things felt that way, that was actually an opportunity as opposed to a disaster, and that you were learning something from that, and that you were going to kind of ride that wave. So your acceptance of that ride helps you know where you are. So now when I have experiences with projects I'm working on where I kind of get that feeling where you feel like it's not going to work at all, or it's got have a lot of sort of negative qualities to it, I know where I am in the wave a bit, and I know that doesn't mean, that means that maybe there's an opportunity for it to go up. Something new and exciting is actually about to happen. I don't know what that is yet, and it hasn't happened. And so maybe that's just a matter of experience and developing confidence.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really easy to, and I remember waking up, just my daughter would make fun of me because she said I woke up like I popped out of a toaster. But every morning it was just anxiety would just get me out of bed.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a morning person. So that's not my sort of way to go. But I woke up every day just with a panic. Like the first thing was like, okay, what's broken? What's wrong? What's the matter? And sure enough, there would be something, within an hour, something would be totally fucked up. And so it was like, it was hard to kind of do that. I probably let that control me a little bit more than I should have at the time.
It's difficult though to figure out what's happening where you are in this state.
And there's a lot of freaking out, a lot of calling people, yelling at people, getting yelled at. A lot of that kind of stuff has to happen. But, like I said, over time you sort of see that, all right, well, something's gone bad. We've either learned like a weakness that we've got, or we've learned, that we can find an opportunity for this, or, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough ride.
Would you ever do another startup? But hardcore startup, like doing what you did again, all these restless nights, anxiety ridden mornings, all this stuff.
So it would be hard to do something from absolute scratch. I think that catch-22 we talked about, we started from, the first month I emailed 2,000 artists one by one, that kind of real sort of from scratch. So I think if there was a startup or a business I was doing, I would want there to be maybe something in place, or that we'd acquired some asset, or some community or something that kind of gave us some footing. But I can't imagine that it, and even if it was a little bit further along, it would still have sort of different shades of anxiety and emotional roller coaster. But I feel, what we're doing with this documentary series, because we're trying to set something up that is going to have a life of several years and several seasons, it feels like a startup in many ways. We have to build a team. We need to do outreach. We need to get artists excited. And then we, are getting people who are going to help sort of pay for that excited as well. So it has a lot of the shades of that. And I think it's nice to be able to have some track record of success to give people some confidence that you A, can be successful again, and that B, that you sincerely care about what you're doing.
And you've done it before, so you won't crack the moment things go south.
Yeah, I think it's all that stuff we talked about. And I think the other thing I try to, as opposed to sort of using a track record of success to create opportunities, it's more of just, I think for me at least, it's like a track record of sincere passion and excitement about something. I think that's what is more important to trade on, for lack of a better word, than maybe financial success. I know some people can, for them it might be different, but for me it's all about that passion and enthusiasm and sincere excitement for people that seems to be helpful.
Yeah. So did you guys try at some moment to get VC funding? Did you pitch? Did you went through the hideous, disgusting process of going to VCs and pitching and everything?
No.
So lucky.
We were like, we're not going to do it. I mean, we had done so much of that at the previous company. That was all we were doing all the time. Yeah. And so, you know, there were sort of shades of it, but it was like, look, there's nobody wants to
invest in art.
Nobody wants to invest money in a bunch of people making an artist community with no business plan. Like nobody even wants to talk to you. And the economy was in the toilet. So, you know, we sort of like, well, no, it's just we're just pirates. Like it's our decision. We're not doing this. But the truth is, there just wasn't. It didn't come up. I mean, we did. Yeah. No, I guess we didn't have to. We did a little. Well, obviously, we had an investor, so a strategic investor. So there was a little bit of presenting and dancing, but it was strategic enough that it was organic.
Sense. Yeah.
So we didn't have to kind of do something where people were just kind of, I don't like purple.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't understand the space and why artists. You just try lawyers or doctors.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Right. You should try lawyers.
Yeah. A community of lawyers. Like, come on. Yeah.
Suing each other for sport.
Yeah. That's a fundable idea.
We didn't have to go through that. And then, it is interesting though, when you don't need money, how much the money shows up or how much people will want to sell you their money. Yeah. Which, you know, again, if we'd been looking at, you know, major growth and building out office space and a team, we would have needed that. But we, you know, I don't know, we got some sort of sick pleasure out of saying no to that.
Yeah.
That was nice for us. But yeah, I'm glad we missed that because we at the previous company, we did a lot of road shows. I did a lot of presenting and, you know, doing presentations in front of investor rooms and, you know, things that are, and for things if you don't care about it as much, you're not as deeply passionate, it's easier for people to poke holes in it. It's hard to do anyway, even if you care, but if you don't, it's even harder to do. And there's a lot of pressure there. So my hat's off to people that do that well and can move through that process and understand that process because it's really important. It can be critical.
Yeah. It sucks like going and presenting to like a lot of people that have specific agendas, specific goals to reach. Yeah. And they poke holes all the time or they crash your idea and it will fail. Yeah, it takes, but
it's good. It is good for you though. I will say the time I spent doing so many presentations for the previous company that I was obviously engaged. I was an employee. I was helping build those presentations and do them. I cared to that extent, but it really seasoned me. Now when I go out and do pitches with things that I care about, I enjoy pitching and presenting my ideas or our ideas and our work. It's actually fun now, and it's an opportunity. But I think people need to go through. I think it's good for entrepreneurs to go through that process of getting, just doing. If you do something enough, you start to look at it as a sport, I guess, a little bit. You start to figure out how you can improve. You start to, you get immediate feedback. You go, you can tell that people are uninterested, or you can tell that they're interested. And I think as a business person, the more comfortable you are having uncomfortable conversations, reaching out to people who you may think are not going to have time for you. I mean, all the great stories you hear about, kings of the world, they're people who reached out to titans when they were very young, and they had the gall to kind of, call someone or raise their hand. My business partner, Justin Cooper, I was always very impressed with his ability to have difficult conversations with people and to approach people who seemed unapproachable. It's that kind of feeling you get when you're like, oh my God, I'm going to shit my pants if I have to go over and talk to that person. And he would go talk to that person.
Very useful skill. Very
useful skill. And, I mean, he would tell me later, I could tell he would be nervous later or he'd be excited, but he was excellent at that, and I always admired that. And a lot of people, I think people need to do more of that. I've been doing a little bit more of that now in my life, and it's exciting to get to do. But I think if people shy away from that, it limits where their business is going to go.
It's awesome. Pure epicness, Justin. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you for being here in Santa Monica. The space was provided by Clock Tower VC. So again, amazing seeing you again. And
thank you so much.
We'll definitely talk again. And I want to travel with you, like do filming. Like
you can show me Greece too.
Of course, it has to be on your list. Definitely has to be on your list. Perfect. Thanks again,
buddy.
man. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Bye bye.